Hello and welcome back to the Transfer Flow. And on today's episode, we talk the games from the weekend as Liverpool beat Arsenal at Anfield and they arguably beat them in the transfer market too. How do both teams' windows set them up for the future? City lost to Brighton. Did they mess up this summer? While Spurs lost to Bournemouth, Villa lose to everyone. And of course, we've got a ton of transfers from deadline day, including Kolo Muani, Isak, Tyrique George, Florentino Luis, and Harvey Elliot. That's all on today's episode of the Transfer Flow. All our best material happens within like the first 30 seconds of us getting on the stream.
And whether Rishi's got the trigger on or not, like it's just flowing anyway.
Yeah, we just need automatic recording on this. But I mean, honestly, it is kind of wonderful to go out of the house for like 6 hours on a Monday on transfer deadline day, come back, open Twitter and see like absolute insanity. Moves that have been called off are back on again. Like guys are showing up at training grounds. Fulham still hadn't signed anyone until about 25 minutes ago. Like it was great. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I mentioned before we hit the record button that, I haven't seen a deadline day like this since Jim White was having dildos shoved in his ear. Non-consensual, I should add, which is the only unacceptable part of that.
Sure.
Yeah, it's wild, and we're here to cover a lot of that. And Patrick's done a shit ton of research on the games, which apparently he's going to talk about. But I'm like, I've got messages from friends in the United States at like midnight and 2 a.m. last night. Like, oh my God, is the price on that Isak deal real? Like, is this even happening? I can't believe that we just written it off all summer, and then finally on the last day, it seems like it's going to go through.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that one's actually happening, so that I hopefully don't have to think about it again, because otherwise we'd have a whole other summer of it next year.
Like the Gyökeres deal.
Oh my God! Like all those signings just need to. This is what the Saudi league should exist for. Like all the guys who never got their moves should just be deposited in the Saudi league, so that we don't have to think about it. But that said, sometimes they get their moves later on. Like today, I was looking at the transfers and I was like, Florentino Luis?
Yeah.
Really? Mm-hmm. 5 years later, if not more. I think he was 19, actually, wasn't he, when it was happening? Now he's 26. And now he's going to Burnley. His huge move is happening.
For a second there, I thought you were going to say all of the moves that don't actually happen should be deported to Saudi for like all the pain and suffering they've caused us. And
I'm also fine with that.
Yeah, the current government in the UK, like I'm not sure what their deportation rules are, but they seem to be pretty strict on immigrants. So you got to be a little careful there.
Yeah, you and I are in trouble. Like, I've got the passport and the accent, but I mean, like, they could, yeah. I don't know. Like, yeah, look, I looked at the games from the weekend, and I think there were interesting things there, but fundamentally, the football world is going absolutely bananas. And I've got to say, I know that you've made this point as well, but 10 years ago, I would look at transfers and think 1 in 4 is something I can maybe get behind. And now I look at the transfers and I think these are pretty much all good players. Like, and we can quibble over fees and fit, but fundamentally, I think there are way fewer scrubs in professional football than it felt like there were going for huge money 10 years ago.
Do you know why that happened?
Oh, here we go.
No, go ahead.
Ted's story hour. It's just like there was once a very clever boy.
That was you. You're the clever boy. I'm the old man now.
In all the stories that my mum tells, yeah, I'm the clever boy. So, look, where do you want to start then with this? Because, like, yeah, I started writing a list of transfers we could talk about at the end, and I just stopped after a while.
Keep going.
Yeah.
The latest one that popped up was Tyrique George, who like Chelsea are like, oh, we're definitely keeping Tyrique George. Like he's definitely going to be part of like the squad for Maresca. And then it's like, he's going to Fulham for 22 million and a significant sell-on percentage. And you're just like, okay, a 19-year-old that looked very, very good in the UEFA Conference League last year. Fulham fans have been deeply unhappy with Tony Khan and whomever else is running things in addition to Tony Khan. Yeah. Although it feels like most of the time it's just down to Tony saying yes or no or having to do his own research. So they've been frustrated there. I mean, might as well start at the top, right? Like the list of stuff, if you're not reading the newsletter, like this all starts from the newsletter. And Kim and I have been on top of this, and a lot of it's been Kim for the whole summer, just trying to figure out, okay, who's going where, what makes sense, do these prices make sense or not? Sometimes we chuck things off the table because they seem terrible or, they got vetoed for various reasons. And then sometimes they come back, as you said, and then particularly today, like a lot of things have come back into the fold that seemed like they were dead and gone. And I mean, you and I had one of our few disagreements about Kolo Muani about a month ago, and I was like, I hate this player. Like, there's nothing in this that excites me about 40, 50 million euro moves. And then suddenly he's like, well, Spurs needed a backup striker, and apparently Kolo Muani's on loan. Here we go.
Yeah, so what that is, I think it's a €5 million loan fee with no obligation. I don't even think with an option next season. Yeah, that makes quite a lot of sense to me. And not just as the backup striker, but also you, I think, have been, another area where we might have disagreed, though I don't know if we've done it on the pod, is that you went through, maybe it was just in a brief moment of weakness last season. You went through a period of unfortunately giving in to the desire to praise Brennan Johnson quite a lot.
I think Brennan Johnson's good.
And that's a nice feeling for you to have. I'm glad you feel that way about him. But I can look at Kolo Muani and think, okay, Brennan Johnson, what does Brennan Johnson do? Nothing, except run fast, arrive back post right time. Kolo Muani, I think, can do a little bit of that as well. He does give you a backup forward. You like him a lot more for this role than you like him as the reference point on a Juventus team that creates basically nothing. So that's
I like it when Juventus
and also
create basically nothing, because I'm very anti-Juventus. Like, all of those years of evil empire, have me extremely anti-Juventus. So coming back to Brennan Johnson, though, the thing I like about Brennan Johnson is he can be good at two different roles, and he has been actually good at two different roles. The problem is he can't combine those roles into one role. he can pass when they tell him, okay, you're a passing forward. And then he can shoot the ball really hard and regularly when they tell him you're shooting forward. The thing that keeps him from being an actually good player, as opposed to good in specific roles, is he can't do both of those at the same time. And I think he's only got half of an active football brain. Kolo Muani, I'm not sure has an active football brain in any particular way. And PSG made a mistake on him, and now he's getting loaned around because, the mistake is there, but he's probably good enough for a backup striker. I think the bigger concern for Spurs is that they have injuries all over the park again, and players that are injured. And so they seem like they are, Maddison is regularly injured. Solanke is regularly injured. Like, if you can't keep your players healthy, looking across at North London as well, it's harder to compete at high levels, and Spurs backdoored into the very highest level somehow at the end of the Europa League season last year. So, yeah.
But Spurs have made a habit of falling arse backwards into fortunate circumstances.
They did,
right?
Because at the end of last week, they fell just completely ass backwards into that one, and congratulations to them.
Well, that was interesting, because I made the point that I think a lot of people have made, which is who was ranking these transfer targets at Spurs that went Morgan, Gibbs-White, and then Eze, and then Paz, and then Simons. As Kim said, it should be in exactly the reverse order. And I obviously had lots of very enjoyable conversations with people on Twitter who told me that's not how transfers work, as they've learned from multiple installments of FIFA. But that's a really great move for them, and they do need a passer, because this weekend especially, it just looked like they had absolutely no idea of how to deal with a team that was going to press them aggressively. Now, they still need a passer deeper in midfield, and the fact that has gone unaddressed this summer, unless they pull something out of the bag at the last minute, I think is a serious worry for them. But they have got deeper.
For those of you who are in the show at this point and wondering what we're going to talk about and where we're going to talk about it, let's just say we will get to all the transfers. We're going to give you some sort of context for how this is going to go. We've led off with Spurs, which is always a horrible idea if you want to keep people watching, but we're going to continue on with this. But we'll then sort of tail that with the thing you just mentioned, which is how bad or how good Bournemouth looked this weekend playing Spurs. So yes, I agree with this. I think that Spurs have a very thin squad right now. Again, they didn't get enough deals over the line. Will they get some loans in? I'm not sure. But I also think that and a point I wanted to make is that I think Chelsea have been busy gumming up the gears across the entirety of the fucking transfer market this summer. And it might even be a useful strategic play, because it means that Simons thought that he was going to go somewhere for a long time.
Yeah.
Fermin Lopez thought that he was going to go to Chelsea for quite a long time, which means that Manchester United couldn't get involved in that earlier or whatever. And there were a couple other deals that just fell apart this weekend because Chelsea have just been there and doing all of this activity while not necessarily completing all of that activity. And they turned player heads. They had players being like, oh, I can get lots of money and a 20-year deal over here at Chelsea that is amortized over 5. Or like I could go somewhere else, but like, London's a nice place to live. Like, do I necessarily want to go to Newcastle? I'm not sure. I'm not disparaging the people of Newcastle. That's great. But when you're a player who's never been to England before, like
Sure.
you're like, well, London seems like it's fun. Newcastle seems like it's far and cold.
The irony being that both of those places are cold, and Newcastle is probably more fun than London. But I mean, I know what you mean. Like Chelsea, yeah, the Simons thing could have been done a lot earlier. Maybe Spurs would have gone harder for him if they didn't think that he was basically nailed on to go to Chelsea. Mm-hmm. Then they've been screwing Bayern with this Nick Jackson back and forth,
which is also funny.
In out. It's always funny when somebody screws Bayern. But on the other hand, you can't quite hand the 4-dimensional chess crown to Chelsea, because then on the other hand they do stuff like what is this Facundo Buonanotte loan that is a dry loan, as we're obliged to call it, the no Vaseline loan, and it's just like I cannot make head or tail of it. Julio Enciso arrives. He goes straight out to loan on Strasbourg, but apparently with big important future at Chelsea, according to Fabrizio. But Facundo Buonanotte straight into the squad. I don't know. I was just like, is this the inheritor of the the Kearn and Dewsbury Hall Memorial bench warmer trophy?
Why was he still available? Also, like Buonanotte is a guy that blooded at Leicester last year. It looked like he was a very capable player. He would have been exactly the type of player that, Brighton would sell on if they weren't sold on him to somebody else in that middle tier, like an Everton or wherever else like that might make sense. And there's plenty of teams that would. Sure, West Ham, even Bournemouth, right? Bournemouth needed to replace some forward power there, at least some depth. But no, suddenly he's got a raw dog loan into Chelsea, and who knows how that's going to go there. You would like him to get playing time. I'm not sure that happens at all. He's certainly like the lowest tier of playing time there because they don't get a chance to sell him on. So like it's an unusual decision from both of those sides. And mostly I think it's just a stopgap for attacking depth. Maybe they're assuming that Pedro Neto actually is going to be regular injured like they should have assumed before. And this is a stopgap for that too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea, they have made an astonishing amount of money from sales this summer. Like, it must be an all-time record now. It must be like 300 mil, somewhere in that region. But I do think that I'm looking forward to getting a bit of altitude on this window, because I do think that some of these moves are not going to look great later. Like, it does seem that their attitude is, if we get offered real money for a player, then we just sell that player. Mm-hmm. But when you look at Renato Vega going to Villarreal, who probably could have gone somewhere else for quite a bit more money earlier in the window, Tyrique George, it feels like they should have been able to extract more than 22 plus add-ons for a homegrown player with like a very high reputation, even if he doesn't have a lot of serious minutes. Those moves, I think, will maybe not look great in a year's time, but Chelsea just want to take the money and kind of roll it up and go again, I guess.
As one of our Slack mates said, like, the financial perspective on this is sell when you can. And if their principle was to buy a lot of players sort of 2 windows ago or 2.5 windows ago, and then to sell a lot of players as much as they can going forward, like if deal flow is the guiding principle there, and anytime they make PSR profit, they feel like they're in good shape, that's totally fine for them. They do have some players that certainly they have made money on. The danger is always like, you get dead assets along the way. And some of those assets become like very dead. So if you overpaid early on, like we were talking about last year, and then those dead assets take 5, 6, 8 years to get off of the books, and you're paying the wages the whole time. Like that's the problem. Now, to be fair to them, they have sold quite well, and they've always sold quite well, minus like this little window at the end of the Abramovich era. Before then, remember Kia like selling guys into China for 60, 70, 80 million and probably getting, massive payments there. Like, that was something that happened regularly. And Chelsea had been great sellers, and they had this loan army that they kept churning over. They were one of the very early teams that had like a great loan army. Brighton, I think, sort of got themselves into that space too. So credit to them for that. The bigger question with Chelsea is always, all right, there's this financial structure around it, but like, what does the product on the field look like? And why isn't that product thus far capable of challenging for the Premier League? And maybe they felt like, without a Liam Delap hamstring twang, they were right there. I'm not sure that João Pedro is going to score a goal a game in his Chelsea career. I think that might be highly optimistic about it. But yeah, the financial structure has not translated into elite first team football yet. It translated into cusp of the Champions League football. They then won a trophy this summer that was very highly regarded. Again, soft competition on their side of the bracket until they trounced PSG in the final. And now we'll wait and see. Now we'll wait and see if they've got enough assets and enough players to mature over the next couple of years into something that is world beating, or if they're just kind of an entity that looks like Arsenal used to do, which is something Chelsea fans would find to be anathema at any previous point.
I can't shake it with Chelsea. I mean, look, if Estevao is amazing, or if Gittins lands a bit faster than I expect, or if Garnacho is somehow a better fit for this team than I think he is, then there are all sorts of paths for them to be very, very good this season. But I still just look at Chelsea and think, Jackson out, Delap in, Madueke out.
He looked good this weekend against Liverpool. He was the only player that looked particularly good against Liverpool for Arsenal.
But then I think, well, nobody really looked good, full stop, right? Like, but then I think these are downgrades. Like, these are just downgrades. Then you get like people like Harto and stuff. So I get, it's not like an across the board thing. But I still just look at Chelsea and think, you seem to have traded a couple of the guys who I really liked here for some more bets. So it's kind of like Brighton more money. But not as smart. Like, that's how it feels a little bit.
Yeah, the multiples are smaller too. Like, they're getting 2x on a player as opposed to 5x on a player or 6x on a player. But they won this weekend, so there you go. Like, that's all that counts.
Yeah, they've got a 100% record so far. Whereas I think from Spurs, if we just wrap up on Spurs, I think probably for the best maybe that Spurs get their bad performance, bad result out of the way before the hype train is truly rolling. Because it was kind of going bananas after the previous weekend. And here it just felt like they could not handle an aggressive team that played into that was really just playing in the half space the entire time. And Spurs had tons of the ball but did nothing with it. They had over 60% possession and they didn't have a shot until the 55th minute. So I was just like, yeah, this does seem like an argument for the buy a deep passing midfielder thing. But they couldn't track runs of the day, couldn't progress the ball. I mean,
it was one of the best I've ever seen Bournemouth play, though. And David Brooks, who has had a hugely injury-riddled career, looked like he'd never had an injury, and he looked like a kid that had gone from like an 18-year-old that you're like, wow, who's this kid, to someone that had just been matured, fully born into this Bournemouth team. And you're like, that kid's great. I've not seen him in a long time because he's not been healthy, but yeah, he looks like he's all grown up and very dangerous. It's pretty exciting. Like Semenyo on one side, Brooks on the other one, Evan Nielsen having a pretty good game. I think his goal was deflected, but even so. But yeah, they were on fire, and Spurs really struggled there. I think that's going to be a pretty typical thing that happens to Spurs as they get into the Champions League setup, because it's just a lot of games and not enough depth to compete with it.
And another real feather in the Areola's cap, like they really have been gutted this summer, and then they go to Anfield and put on a really good fight. And it was a pretty even game, really, on the actual chances, the Liverpool game. Then this match just wholly dominates Spurs away from home with Senesi and a new guy, Ekitike, playing centre back. And yeah, like still in need of at least one in attack. Is highly impressive, and it feels like Iraola, Bournemouth fans should probably enjoy him while they can. Like,
2 1-0 wins as well.
Before, but...
They completely replaced the back line. They've got 2 1-0 wins, like one against an actual pretty good team. Like us, and they were not horrible against Liverpool, although Liverpool scored 4. So there you go. Right, we should probably talk about that team because they have made moves and continued to make moves, even moves that we were like, do they really need to make that move? They made that move, baby.
Yeah, so Isak heading to Liverpool for a British record, 125 to 130 mil, somewhere in that region. A move they totally, definitely needed. I mean, you could point out that in the Arsenal game, Liverpool created absolutely nothing. You know, for all that we always hear afterwards, it's like, there's only one team trying to win this game. I was just like, was anyone trying to win this game?
No one was trying to win this game.
No one did anything in this match. It was like under point. It was Scott Willis said on Twitter that it's the first time Liverpool have had under 0.5 expected goals in a home game in over 4 years. And I mean, it was just low event overall. But Ekitike and Gyökeres, not a shot between them. So maybe you put Isak in. Maybe that's the answer. But I just still. Liverpool always get the benefit of the doubt because they're so smart, and they're presumably going to add Gueye today as well before the window closed. And they've gone and got Leone as well, this young centre back. So these are interesting moves. I still look at this Liverpool team and think I don't quite understand why you think you need Isak as well as Ekitike here. It doesn't quite make sense to me. What about you?
Yeah, I don't think I'm concerned with that. Like, I think they went to go for like real depth and all the jewels. And when I did
except at fullback,
they got jewels. Depth is I mean, they got three left backs. Like Tsimikas is like, I got to go somewhere else. I want to play. And
do we like any of those left backs?
Kirkesh he does a lot of work. Anyway, leaving that alone. That team is loaded for bear. They might be one or two pieces short of a dynasty, but I think what they did in this window was build for that next dynasty. They built for another sort of 4-year period where they thought that they could compete as like one of the 4 best teams in the world every single year. And they might be missing a piece or two, but you can't always make those moves. I think also the fact that Jota, passed away it injured them a bunch in the way that they were planning, right? Like unexpected death and a horrible circumstance, but you have to keep going. The team keeps going. Luis Diaz wanted to go out. They wanted some sales, and so that was an obvious one. Darwin as a reload made sense too. So it's not even that expensive for them. What they did was they went out and they bought every player that they could, that they had basically at the top of their recruitment board, and they landed the deals. And Gueye, I think another one was like right there on the cusp of it. He kept insisting to Palace that he wanted to leave. Palace basically paid 35 million to have him stay for an extra year. They got a trophy out of it. So like maybe that's value for them. I'm not sure. And so what they're going to do is go into this next season with maybe 1 to 2 missing pieces. And I think that they'll find that in the next year or two. And what they'll have done is basically taken everybody that they could find that could possibly make this team better or be a long-term player for them, bring them on board and set up for that next 4 years. I have huge respect for it. It was fantastically expensive in what happened. I don't think that they obviously needed Isak, but without Isak, you could definitely say that they were a little bit fragile in a couple different spots. With Isak, you're like, look, that center of the pitch needs to stay healthy. With Gueye also, like you can absorb an injury to Konate and Van Dijk. And one of the things about the game yesterday, like we talked about Gyökeres not being able to really bully any good center back pairing in the Premier League, and particularly can't bully that center back pairing. Like it's just like, get out of here, you and your baby muscles, go away. So yeah, it was not super competitive on his part. We can leave the game analysis till later, but Liverpool went big, and they went big in a very good way. They also like dominated the transfer market in a lot of ways. Like they were the domino in multiple different places. So respect to them, and they're now odds-on favorites to win the title.
Well, I mean, not least because I think through their first 3 games, they've been not good, in my opinion. Like they were fine in the first game, but gave up a lot. Then in the Newcastle game, they were horrible, and in the Arsenal game, they did nothing. But they also gave up very little in the Newcastle and the Arsenal games, though to 2 teams with their own attacking issues. If you can just have this team like be kind of competent defensively, and then at some point, Wirtz, Isak, Ekitike, Salah start clicking, you are going. You're not. Teams won't be able to live with them. No. The question will be whether they can maintain the defense, and I still do have issues with that. I don't really like the fullback situation.
Do you think Szoboszlai is a long-term right back? Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe, like, yeah, exactly. I don't know. Like,
As long as he keeps
possible.
pumping them in from 35 yards, like yeah, you hit that shot over and over again, we'll put you back here, right back. That's fine.
Yeah, so I mean, Liverpool. Look, if they want to do this is fine. Like 9 points from 9 early on, they will absolutely start motoring at some stage. To be honest with you, when you say we can leave the analysis to later, I don't have really that much to say. Like nothing happened in this match. Arsenal went out and they were like, Odegaard's not fit to start. Eze doesn't know the defensive game plan yet. We're going to pick the most conservative midfield possible. Now, obviously, generally speaking, Arsenal are always going to do the most conservative thing possible. But I don't really think
missing two of their best players, like it kind
three
of
in the end, right?
Yeah, and going to Anfield, right? So like the first part is going to Anfield. Anybody goes into Anfield who just won a title. I'm not sure if like the broader media knows that. You're going to be a little bit conservative, especially after they spent like 300 million on the attack.
Yeah.
You're like, ooh, maybe we should be careful because they have really good attackers. Arsenal are naturally set up for that, but everyone would do it. And Arsenal, like, they kept Liverpool from laying a glove on them. That was like job one was done, and they scored an incredible goal from a very long range free kick, which is extremely unlikely. It's about 1 in 100 that goal happens. Respect for what happened. Liverpool come out of the first 3 games not having dominated a single one of them and have 9 points. That is a gift. That is a gift, and that is a gift that will probably carry them on to another title. Especially given how fragile the other title champions look. And as we transition to the next team, Arsenal tried to do the same thing, right? But like Arsenal did it in a way that says that we need to win now. And Liverpool did it in a way that says we want to win for the next 4 or 5 years. That I found to be really impressive and also slightly frustrating from a fan perspective. Arsenal's signings, like a Gyökeres, were like, an 85th percentile signing, not a 99th percentile signing. And Arsenal had some other pretty good ones, right? Eze is another one of those. But again, both of those guys are in their late 20s. Their contract's going to run till a point that's like slightly uncomfortable. You can expect the fall off in the last 2 years to be pretty dramatic. And now you've got basically dead money on your cap. Liverpool didn't really do that. And so when you look at what Arsenal did this summer versus what Liverpool did this summer, you would say that this team deserves an A+, despite, ignore the money a little bit. But Arsenal spent real money, like real money. And did they get that much better? Or were they really just hoping that things landed in their favor for once and they were able to push on? I think that is a slightly scary, frustrating thing for Arsenal fans to look at. And I would also say that, given the way that things transpired, you have to downgrade Arsenal a little bit there and just downgrade overall as the possibility that they are going to compete for this league over the next 4 or 5 years. They better things can happen, and full credit to the ownership for like really condoning that money. But you do have to look at those two windows side by side and be like, the money wasn't that different in what was spent, but certainly the results in terms of player quality were.
Yeah, I think that's undeniably true. Though when we talk about competing for the next few years, the argument that Arsenal can make is obviously Liverpool's star centre back and star winger are at the opposite end of their careers to Arsenal's star centre back and star winger. Like when you look at the age profile of the squad, it's still pretty favourable for Arsenal. Like it's not inferior to Liverpool.
In the positions that really matter, maybe. In the injury fragility, certainly not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think Saka is a player that like he's probably going to be like 60% of the time for the rest of his career. I think that the way that his career has gone and the type of injuries that he has, and I'm not a medical doctor, so let me step back a little bit from expertise there. We have just seen a lot of this pattern recognition that says that like, a very talented physical, but also intellectually talented wide player will gradually fall off, especially if they have a history of early injuries and also play through those injuries consistently, right? Like there's a bodily cost to that type of stuff. I hope that Arsenal get to keep their, Saliba as a center back. That one's excellent. I do know that their academy has been producing very good players, but we don't really know what that, top level of players is right now. Like, are they going to be Trent Alexander-Arnold, who goes from, age 18 into the team, or even a Raheem Sterling, like, coming very early and then having like, you know, a 12-year career where they're basically, you know, near the top, 10-year career, 8-year career, whatever, near the top of the game, right? Or are they going to be somebody that, you know, Arsenal are happy to sell on to Fulham for 25 million and in 2-3 years time when they never quite make it? Like, we don't know that yet. It's great to have the pipeline and it's great to be able to make the money off of it. But I would say, like, from an odds perspective, like, you look at an Arsenal and you look at a Liverpool right now and you say, okay, what do we think the next 3 years of this team look like? And they're a decent chunk below that, right? Like, Arsenal, the 5th, 6th, 8th best team in the world, probably, depending on how things age. And Liverpool are going to be in that top 4, almost guaranteed.
Okay. Like, maybe. I don't know. I guess I just look at Liverpool and I think, the defense like looks very wobbly to me. Like, I think Konate's going on a free next year and Van Dijk is very old. And even if they get Gay's 26, I think. You know, I'd not sure I trust the fullbacks. And I think those are kind of weak. Whereas Arsenal's defense now is like 2 deep at least, kind of everywhere.
I give full credit for that, but I think the attack is the harder positions to recruit for, which we saw in the summer.
And I think again with Isak, like I don't know, the Isak thing I still worry about, because I'm like, Isak's 26 and has a horrible injury history, but I do look at Wirtz particularly, and I think, this is the one. If this is the gap between Liverpool and a bunch of their rivals, I mean, you go and get Cherki, like, we like Cherki for Man City, but Cherki poses quite a lot of problems as well. And actually now he's injured for 2 months. Arsenal have gone for a sort of oval peg in a round hole, like on the left wing in Eze. And you think if you get Wirtz there, like, Wirtz can be a round peg in a round hole basically anywhere across the front line. So I think I agree in that regard. I guess I just find it, with Liverpool, it just seems a bit strange that Ekitike looked instantly so good. Not in this game, but in the others. And I guess he's now a bench player.
I think that they think that they can also play him wide left.
Okay.
I think that actually looking at the size difference there, like, you're going to get some mismatches against fullbacks in different ways that are going to cause real problems. Now, say you basically have to double Isak in most games. And now it's a little bit about, I mean, this is a very different quality, but there was a period of time where Midtjylland had both Paul Onuachu and Alexander Sorloth, and they would play them as part of a front three. And Paul was so big, he's like 6'6", that and he was quite talented for the Danish league. And so, like, teams would have to, like, really sort of deal with him, which meant that Sorloth got to man up against fullbacks over and over again. And he was like, if they were as fast as him, great. But, like, he was going to beat them physically every single time. And he was a more talented footballer. I think that Ekitike gives Liverpool that gift when they're able to use it. And I think also Ekitike, because he played in Germany, means that he's probably a little more comfortable in the kind of German pressing style of play, which is what Liverpool will use it from time to time. The last thing is, I think that they're going to manage Salah's minutes pretty well, provided they can have health this year. And that's a significant contributor. And that dude seems like he's bulletproof. Like, he seems like he takes great care of himself, never gets injured. They'll keep him as long as they possibly can.
Yeah. On the topic of Liverpool having spent, both these teams having spent so much money, like, what, 2/3 of $1 billion between them this summer, pretty much. Is there an argument then for the slightly sub-elite teams to maybe save a bit of money for next year? Because these teams now are going to have presumably far less room for maneuver over the next few years because they're locked into these really expensive deals.
I think that this transfer window was possibly an anomaly. It was really weird. When we came into this window, we looked at all the economics across the board. We saw that the Premier League had a small increase in the amount of money they got from the international deals. But technically, it looked like the domestic deals were a decrease, certainly in terms of per game. They had to free up many more matches to be able to show on TV. But also that it was flat. And so you look at it and you say, Premier League quality is pretty good, but, like, these deals can't keep going up. They can't. And then you look across the football world, and they definitely are not. Like, many of these TV deals are going down. Some TV deals barely exist, like in France. So we expected that this window would be less sort of punchy than it actually is, and that Premier League teams would exact a more disciplined price. What happened was they took the money. They did not exact disciplined prices. The Premier League deals inside of the Premier League actually ended up setting a lot of prices for the external deals, because they're like, look, you're middling tier players, like your 70th percentile players going for like 55 million pounds. We know that we can get 45 million pounds out of you for an international deal. You'll be happy you saved the 10, and we're going to take advantage of that. And so we are continuing to see a 2 to 3x price premium for players that move into the Premier League versus anywhere else in the world, which is crazy. And obviously it tells you kind of how the other European elite feel about the Premier League's TV deals and sort of drawing power.
Okay. Well, where should we go from here then? Who's exciting you? Because we could talk a little bit about some of the games. We could talk about City and Brighton, for example. We could talk about Jack Grealish, who's extremely back.
Why don't you talk about Grealish? Because like I do feel people are excited about it, and he's excited, which I think is why that rolls onward.
Just over 290s, 4 assists off about 2 expected goals and assists. It kind of looks the way that we thought. I think it might have been Grace Robertson who made this point that how ridiculous it is that we're glad that Grealish has been freed from the clutches of football terrorist Pep Guardiola to be finally freed up to play attacking football under David Moyes. But we saw how good Grealish was in a team. This is always the thing, right? About one of these players who comes off a middling team where the ball always goes through them, and then they go on to a bigger team and they're a bit more of a role player. Now everything's going through him again. And to give Moyes credit, he has funneled everything so it always goes to Grealish, and it's working for them. And Grealish looks, I thought that the passing would be there, and the close control and stuff, but I wasn't sure that he'd look like he had his little burst at least for a couple of months of the season. But it does look like it's there.
He's a magician that's enjoying playing football. And when those things happen, like fans just have to step back and really appreciate it, regardless of who they play for. Like I have been tough on Jack Grealish over the years because I've known about the stories happening behind the scenes that eventually bubbled to the surface about his sort of off-field endeavors. And the fact that whatever has happened recently seems to have given him like a new burst of life and enjoyment in playing football, which doesn't always happen for footballers. And also he seems like he's fit, which is the thing that I had the biggest concern with. I think that's great. And I like to see Jack Grealish play. I really do. And the ball like loves to be at Jack Grealish's feet.
You said that he was a magician, but Everton have also signed a midfielder called Merlin.
Merlin.
Merlin Roel, who, as Kim pointed out in the Slack, it's almost impossible to see what he does. He's absolutely a body on the field, he's a big body on the field, which I think is what David Moyes are like, a big unit. But
they're hoping that he doesn't pull a disappearing act.
Everton had a good window. Everton are thin in lots of places. They were always going to be. I don't think it was possible to do everything that they wanted to do this summer, but they had a good, solid window. They've got multiple players who can make a difference for them. And they haven't done it in a way where I was worried they'd overcommit in 2 or 3 positions. But actually, I kind of like what they've done overall. Pleased for them.
In a way, they were unhampered by bad contracts because they didn't have enough money to sign bad contracts in the first place. So when you have a very low payroll where you're like, God, you need talented bodies and we can pay them real wages, bring them on through. I think they did a good window, as opposed to an Aston Villa who have started off horrifically in the Premier League and went from we're spending tons of money every single window and it's an unlimited money machine to like turning the spigots off, looking at a couple of loans for attackers, maybe another loan here or there. Like Villa fans are very concerned, and it was a weird financial place before, and now it's weird in the opposite way, and they haven't made significant sales to like keep churning through that like a Chelsea did. And so once you turn the money taps off, like they really seem to struggle.
They did make a lot of money last year. I think like they ended last year in the black, right? on their sales. I mean,
in the black from their financial engineering PSR deals that had weirdly large fees. Yes, please continue.
Yeah, I would just like it to be very clear to anyone watching that Ted said that. Though, to be honest, I did have to shy away from this when writing the preview. But look, I mean, Villa, they started the season off with this run of Newcastle, Brentford, Palace, which is not particularly easy, but it's not particularly hard either. I mean, like, these are direct rivals for upper mid-table slots, and all of them actually significantly weakened by the window. And Villa have been dreadful through the first 3 games. They're at like a minus 0.9 expected goal difference per 90. And yeah, 3 games, not going to read too much into it, but that is horrible. They've put up almost nothing in attack, which again was the worry. Like, they pushed Tielemans back up into this 10 spot. And I think they just hope that he can run an attack, but it's ended up being McGinn's the only guy passing into the penalty area in any volume, and he's doing it all from crosses. So they obviously felt, right, okay, Rodgers doesn't have the pass volume to play there right now, which, again, talked about in preview, very unusual profile for somebody who gets played notionally as a 10. So they've gone out today.
He's more like a Scott McTominay in his way.
Yeah, exactly. He's exactly like Scott McTominay. Yeah, he's a world-class runner from deep.
but a better runner than Scott McTominay.
But when they were linked with Buonanotte at one point, and I was just like, Buonanotte and Rodgers are just going to try and do the same thing, I think, which is like run through traffic and take a shot from 20. But they've gone and got Harvey Elliott today for about 35 mil. It looks loan with obligation.
Okay. I hadn't seen the obligation fee on that one. Jadon Sancho, oh great. They've added another slow, slightly passy player that isn't great out of possession into their forward line. That makes a ton of sense.
The only thing I thought with the Sancho thing is like, okay, McGinn plays on the wing, but is not really a winger. Is this an opportunity for somebody to finally do the thing that you've been going on about with Sancho for ages, which is plug him into a midfield 3, make him more of a, I guess, Martin Ødegaard type, who's like kind of 10, but really like he's technically in a kind of 8 role, and you take advantage of his passing, and maybe he's a bit slow for an attacker, but he's kind of an okay pace for the third man in the 3-man midfield.
Maybe, I don't know. Like we're sort of like off the beaten path. Like this is uncharted territory, and we'll see whether we have a shipwreck. That's kind of where I'm at. And Villa already, like they're taking on water, so it's not the most seaworthy boat this season.
Yeah, I think they were locked into trying to. They hoped they'd get Asensio, then they gave up, then they went back, then they gave up again. But it does just feel like that attack has a bunch of guys who are pretty mobile, can get some shots, but nobody who can just run it. Like nobody who just is like, give me the fucking ball and make some runs in front of me. Like they just do not have that guy.
That?
Go on.
Jack Grealish.
Yeah. And then they tried to get Lucas Paqueta, which is kind of.
Do you want to talk about his reaction in the weekend? Because it's brilliant. I love it.
He scores a pen, kisses the badge, or no, he mimes getting a phone call, hangs up, throws it away, kisses the badge. Like that was his celebration. And I was like, look, okay, West Ham had a great result at the weekend, a really great result away at Forest, 3-0. Though I looked at it and their 3 goals came pretty much in this like 13-minute stretch. And in this 13-minute stretch, including the penalty, they had like 1.7 XG out of the 3.7 that they've had so far this season. So 12 good minutes across 270 is roughly where we are with West Ham. But if Paqueta is saying, you know what, there's no way I'm ditching West Ham to come play for Aston Villa, that is, I mean, I think he's maybe done Villa a favour, but that is not a particularly good look for them. So I don't know. I mean, it has been a bit of a ropey window for them, and they've basically got to hope Harvey Elliott fixes it.
Should we talk about sort of the other light blue team up north-ish that had a very difficult weekend and may have had some ropey transfer dealings already? Like I feel like, oh God.
Wouldn't that be amazing if we just did 20 minutes on Rangers now?
Just by employing Russell Martin, Yeah. Anyway, let me get out of that hole because I'm gonna dig it deeper. So the person, the footballing terrorist, the Pep Guardiola, I think we had one really big question. In general, I liked their moves. I saw some of them were, a little bit desperate, but like you can understand why they were doing it in the first part of the year. I think Nico Gonzalez was the one that was like price versus fee was like uncertain.
Yeah.
Ait-Nouri, it all kind of made sense, right? It added up, but like it wasn't also those ones where you're like, this is a world beater. It doesn't look like Liverpool's window. And we actually expect City and Pep to look like Liverpool's window. But the thing so I love the Sharky side. And then when we also did the roundup, I hated the complimenting other midfield that they got.
Yeah.
Brighton did nothing while Rodri had his legs. And then the moment that Rodri got tired this weekend, and I haven't posted it because I didn't want to get it run over by the deadline day stuff. But the race chart on that looks like this is an art exhibit that says what happened when Rodri got tired. And it's basically a flat line that City had full control of this Brighton game. And then it goes vertical in about a 10-minute stint where like Rodri clearly gets tired. Reinders can't defend any. He can't do anything out of possession.
Yeah.
And they got stomped by Brighton in that last 30 minutes. Stomped. It was not close.
Yeah, I mean, before they scored any goals in this, I implore people to go and watch the highlights if you didn't catch the game and just find there's a breakaway Minte chance before they score a goal. And Minte is behind the entire three-man midfield, which is Silva, Rodri, Reinders. And within about half a second, he's caught them and overtaken all three of them. Reinders gives up first. Rodri and Silva keep going, to their credit. But it just ends up with a 4-on-3. And the only guy who looked like he had any speed to do anything about anything was Husanov. And a little bit Ait-Nouri throughout the course of the game. That was kind of what it was like. I mean, even the winning goal as well was also a 4-on-3. Brighton just kept four guys up against the back line. And said, no, we just trust that the ball is going to break. And it did break.
That's a big worry for Pep going forward this season, especially if he continues to run out lineups like this. In the same way that Liverpool had that big worry where they gave up 2 goals in the first opening. And then Arsenal decided, oh, no, we're gonna like keep this locked down.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't want to track meet it. Versus those last years against Pep, teams were happy to track meet, or not Pep, but Klopp, and teams were happy to track meet against Liverpool because they knew that there was going to be a little bit legginess, a little bit tiredness. They weren't going to maintain discipline the entire time. I think if teams in the Premier League, and there are some head coaches that will do this, if teams in the Premier League tee off on the back lines and those deep midfielders against both Liverpool and City, they might see a lot more payday than they had in the past.
What? So if they're sort of like kicking for territory into the fullback zones, are you thinking?
Yeah, and I just think like go for the 4-on-3s regularly. Like keep your players high. Have 1 or 2 players that know what the outlets look like, and try to create those transitions against those teams. Because last year Pep's team couldn't handle a transition. They decided to go high tempo, and then sort of cleaned out the end of the season with better quality players and a slightly weaker schedule. Going back just briefly. The thing that is weird about Villa is they finished the season strong, and they've been like diabolical so far. Like City finished the season strong, have 2 losses in the early games, and what you just saw is something that everybody will watch the footage of and be like, "Ooh, I bet we can do that." And City have nothing in the fire this weekend, and nothing coming in late because Pep hates late signings. But man, I feel like they need to find somebody that's got legs that he can stick into that midfield that can shore them up, because that looks really, really dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. If you get 60 good minutes out of Rodri, then that's fine. But you've got to have somebody who can come in and give you 30 reasonable minutes after that. Now Sherky's out as well. They've lost the guy who's also meant to give them the kind of special sauce if they do need to break teams down. But what was interesting in this game is they didn't have a particularly low PPDA. It wasn't like they were absolutely pressing Brighton to death, but they had absolutely tons of the ball. And Brighton were kind of okay with this. Like they looked they got more and more comfortable with this as the game went on, and then they were perfectly happy to play up really, really aggressively, really, really quickly, really low pass accuracy as soon as the ball was won, and just trust that City couldn't recover. And that was pretty much how it worked.
We haven't done like a tactical preview because we've been busy with everything else and also some holiday time. But like I would guess that one of the tactical things that you'll see even more so than you have in recent years is teams hybrid pressing for like that 30 minutes and 60 minutes off, especially against the good teams, and then they'll flip it back against teams that they think they have a talent advantage on. So they'll do 45 or 60 minutes of high press and then middle block for the rest of it. That's been kind of an ongoing theme for at least last year and maybe for the last couple of years. Like we talked about intermittent pressing, for the last decade. And one of the reasons why you see intermittent as opposed to consistent high press, like you saw in Germany for quite a long time, is like you just can't burn the player energy for that long in the Premier League. It is too frantic. It is too many physical freaks that, will cause you problems on the other end of it. And if you make one mistake, you have no control. Like Pep has been the best control head coach of all time, and he can't do it. Arteta has shifted his style out of Pep's style. They'll go intermittent and sort of middle block a lot, and probably not enough aggressive attacking. Like Maresca is, tried to control things last year, completely failed. So that Pep school has finally been really tested by the teams that have great attackers and physical mismatches that can go up against their defenders. Pep's defenders no longer are effectively what Liverpool's defenders are, which like incredibly talented footballers who also have the physical abilities in that like 95th, 98th percentile. You can't do it against the Premier League anymore. There's too much money going around. And that's the thing that has really caused this league to be more fun than it ever has been before. I think like it is, everybody has a chance, even a Sunderland, even a Burnley has a chance to go out there and get some results.
Yeah, though Burnley got absolutely slapped by Man
United. A chance. I didn't say what size of a chance.
Man United taking the most shots per 90 in the Premier League right now. By a long way as well. They like doubled.
Do you know what
their
their
shots
expected
against.
goals are per game right now?
They've got like, I guess it must be somewhere in the 1.8 range, 1.7, 1.8 per 90.
So Chelsea are 1.79 on StatsBomb. Bournemouth are 136. Manchester United are 156 in terms of attack, and then City are 165. Liverpool are 1.01 and Arsenal are 1.17. But I think the more interesting thing, like United have taken 18 shots and they're only getting 1.56 expected goals, which understanding expected goals still an important principle in this modern day. We haven't completely chucked it out the fucking window. But the interesting bit is like, United are positive 0.36 expected goal difference, which I think is useful to note, partly because they have faced Arsenal. So they have had one real team that they faced. They faced Burnley, which is not a real team for real, right? And they faced Fulham, which is, a mid-table team. So they've kind of had like the full mix. Yeah. If United finished at 0.36 expected goal difference for the season, you'd be like, that's really good, actually. I'm kind of impressed by that, especially given the turnaround. We're not on a high Manchester United kick, by the way. I think, to bring this back a little bit, the player that has the most expected goals per 90 is Joshua Zirkzee. The second most is Harry Maguire. So, let's not get overhyped about this right now.
We will get hyped about them if it turns out that the Stiller rumors are real. There were rumors they were going to go in for Angelo Stiller over the last 24 hours of the window. If that were real, then I'd be okay, I'm a believer. Manchester United, the smartest team in the game, they're back. They're back to take their crown, baby. To finish up on City, okay, it is only 3 games, but we've been very, very positive on Liverpool. Some of us more positive than others. Are you revising down your opinion of Manchester City?
Not yet. I think the Spurs result was a warning shot.
Yeah.
I think the Brighton result is very concerning. I think that I'm concerned about my future pick that I advised in although I'm doing all right on the championship, so those look pretty good. I think that there is still a chance that they can fix this. And I think that not all teams will have the ability to cause them problems. But I thought that they would find a way to not get trounced in these late game situations. And I think that they might get that way. And that means that something will have to come in January that shores it up. So
sure.
We'll see. All right. So we've roughed up City. We have gently asked questions about all sorts of different teams. I have been uncomfortably optimistic and praising of Liverpool's window. What else do we need to cover here? Because there are still deals literally flowing as we come to 3 hours left in the transfer window.
We can. Holy shit. We can talk. Like Penda's gone to Juve, but we could save some of this for Wednesday as well. We'll probably do Ten Hag on Wednesday and Atleti's terrible start. But there's a Penda. There's still rumors about Lookman. Martinez looks like it's not going to happen now because United have signed a baby boy to play in goal. Sunderland going bananas. They've got Hertrauda and Robbie.
So I think Sunderland's window is one of the toughest ones to evaluate, much like Ipswich's window last year was tough to evaluate. Ipswich's window from last season looks like they made great choices in players they knew they could sell on if they got relegated, and then they did. I think Forest also have a very difficult window to evaluate right now. Like I'm not sure that I feel like they definitely have not gotten better. But they don't really need to get much better because like that's not their style of play. Their style of play is not like get better. Their style of play is grind, and then like hope that like some goals happen in your favor. And assuming you don't give up more than one, like you've got a good chance to get a result out of any game, which they did this weekend. So that didn't go so well for them.
Though they've been a possession side through the first 3 games of the season. It's really bizarre.
Is that good?
They got the ball all the time. What are they doing?
Is that good? I'm not sure that's good for them.
No, I don't think it's good for them at all.
Here, I'll ask you a question. Actually, did you guys talk about Woltemade last week on the pod?
No.
Okay. Do we want to bring that one forward? Because like that one was also a thing. So Woltemade and Wissa are, first of all, the double W's. Like, gotta respect the double W's. But very, very different players. Like this is like a big little act coming on board there. Obviously, Newcastle had to have some players at least, and they are in the Champions League, believe it or not, in order to field a reasonable attack, which they've struggled with in their first couple of games. They got Wissa, it seems like, for 50 plus 5. Brentford had been sort of briefing publicly that they were very uninterested in selling Wissa. And he and his agent had been saying that they had been promised sales, which, often is, I don't know, there are differing levels of belief around those promises. I think he's still good, and I think he's still good enough to do a pretty reasonable job for them. And I think that it's important that they have a couple different types of profiles too, because like the big little act actually it can be really successful against defenses, especially when, they get tired and then you bring on the strong guy, or they get tired and you bring on the fast guy, and they're used to playing of a particular way for like that previous 60 minutes. And then all of a sudden they've got to scramble and adjust for the last 30. What did you think of the Woltemade signing? And do you think that like he's enough to keep them up in that Champions League reckoning?
I think the money is absolutely crazy.
Yes.
It's a very short track record, and it's a very long check with a lot of zeros on it. But if it's real, then he's great. I mean, his numbers, but it is basically, it's a season, between half a season and a season that we've got of him being great. And before that, he's kind of a nobody. But he's big. He's mobile, though not particularly fast, but he can move. He's got nice feet. He's not much of an aerial presence, though I guess Wissa is a problem for teams physically. I think it's a reasonable bet, though I would like the price to be, honestly, like probably half of this. Like really half of this.
The way that sensible things would have operated this summer is Newcastle agree and understand that Isak is going to move. Like they get that figured out. They don't want to have all the stress. So they quietly have an agreement with Liverpool. Nobody talks about it. And then they come in and they say, hey, we got to get these 2 guys. Let's get them early. We know what we're going to get for Wissa, or we're going to get for Isak. So like we can sign normal price players as long as we take action early. And then they sign them, and then they sell Isak, and everything makes sense, and nobody gets leveraged for desperately needing to find a center forward, knowing that you've got 125 million in the bank. That did not happen, and that then means that everyone could leverage Newcastle and their desperation around needing to sign players in ways that usually it's only Manchester United that seem to get leveraged at that level these days.
Yeah.
The best nickname that I've seen for Woltemade that is going to stick in my head?
No.
Peter, Krautzsch, Peter Crouch in the German way. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love
it. He does have good feet. He does have good feet. Like, I would love him to be great. And I do understand looking at the vague silhouette of player that you think you want to replace Isak, and being like, okay, couldn't get Isak, couldn't get Ekitike. Next guy up might be Woltemade. But it also does feel a little bit like Newcastle are maybe saying, well, we trust Bayern's ability to pick the best young German youngsters, and Bayern wanted him at like 2/3 of this price, so we'll just go and pay whatever it takes to get it done. With Wissa, I think that there's the bust potential goes down significantly, right? Like, the attack is going to be okay, though I still think they're lacking a truly creative profile in this team. But it's only Saudi money. It's not real money. It's bullshit monopoly money. So who cares?
It's fiat and oil currency. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. I think.
And if you're going to get 30 mil, if you're going to get 30 mil as well for in the same way that with Liverpool, we could say, okay, well, you shift, Nunez, and you shift Harvey, Elliot, and you shift a bunch of these guys, and the price that you're paying significantly goes down. With Newcastle, similarly, if Osula's going to go out to Frankfurt for 30 mil, and you're paying 69 for Woltemade, then I'm kind of like, oh, well, whatever.
Those deals that you see a number and you're like, that can't be the real number. That has to be like some made up number. I mean, this was all of last summer, right? Like, every single number that came across, you're like, no way. Like, there's no way that makes sense. Half of the time I felt that way in the Premier League this summer, but part of that was just because the fees were so absurd. But that fee is not a Premier League team paying that fee. And so, now I'm just baffled. I don't know. It has been by far the most fascinating transfer window that I can remember. It has sustained in a way that it never happens. Like, from the moment the doors opened on the window, because there were two windows, right? Like, there was the Club World Cup window and then the additional window. I think that it has been incredible to watch. I think that it's been fun for fans who love this type of stuff. And I'm really happy that we founded a newsletter and a podcast that covers this type of shit in detail every single week, because it's turned out really well for us.
I honestly was wondering if I should text you and be like, should we just be live streaming this? Like, this is bananas.
If we had known that this would happen, we would have live streamed it. So many times in the past, live streaming it would have been like such incredible, boring disaster. This would have been more fun than any time that I can just honestly remember. And yeah, I mean, the last time that I remember enjoying it this much was when random players were showing up at the training ground, hoping that they would get signed because they were so desperate to leave the club. That apparently hasn't happened yet, but I haven't turned on Sky today, so maybe it has. Maybe
it's totally possible. I mean, I've been on a lot of deadline day live streams, and the last time I was as baffled was when I was live on Sky, and they were like, Arsenal have bid £92 million for Thomas Lemar, who I think literally at that moment was playing an international match for France.
That is a name that I actually forgot existed, but yes, I remember those windows, right? The Nicolas Pepe and the Thomas Lemar.
Oh, carnage. On the last note, when you're talking about players going for insane money where you think that can't be right, I looked at West Ham's transfers for this summer. And, Sungutu Magasa, who I mentioned earlier in the window, I think in our United rebuild, they got him for 17 million euros. Great. Yep. Callum Wilson had a game at the weekend as well, man. He strapped his knee on for one last ride. But they paid 45 million euros for Mateus Fernandes from Southampton, and they made Todibo permanent for 40 million euros.
Wow.
85 mil on those two guys.
After last summer, and Max Kleinman and Füllkrug and players that should not have been in that squad that were definitely... They believe that they're going to stay up, and if they continue to get results like they did this weekend, that belief will pay off in spades. But I still think that it's going to take them years to dig out of what they did in recent times, and I'm not sure that they're doing it in a good way. So we'll see. This has been the best, though. As we came into this saying there are fewer what the fuck deals than we've had in recent times. We've also said that it was the craziest window that we can remember in lots of different ways. Like Chelsea had their fingers in every single pie, screwing things up for various teams. Liverpool also had multiple domino moments where they've caused lots of problems. Arsenal spent fuck tons of money. United unfortunately spent fuck tons of money in places that they didn't really need to spend money, but they, as we said, after 3 games, they actually have a positive expected goals difference, which is a little weird. I don't know, man. This season is going to be awesome. We haven't even kicked into the Champions League season. If you like gambling, we've been killing it on variance betting. Like, it has been a month to remember.
Yeah, it's been a really, really fun one. And I mean, next summer, international football coming back, baby. So yeah, we're on a hot run right now, but we'll be picking over the carcass of this transfer window for at least a few more episodes. Like, hopefully on Wednesday's episode, we can talk a little bit about some of the stuff going on in Italy, which is always insane. We'll talk a bit about Atletico Madrid, whose moves we were quite optimistic about, but who've started the season like absolute hammered shit. So yeah, there's lots more interesting stuff to come out.
And in 2 weeks' time on this podcast, we're going to bring forward the transfer grades. Yes. Everybody's favorite sequence that we do on a regular basis. We're going to grade some transfers. We're going to call people on their bullshit. We're going to praise some teams that we don't want to praise, but we'll do it anyway because we're professionals.
That's right. So thank you very much to all of you for sticking with us through this very exciting summer. We do appreciate it. Make sure, if you're watching us on YouTube, that you like and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on your favorite podcast app, leave us a 5-star review because we really appreciate it and it helps us out. And we will catch you next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.